It's me and Rich Ross here on a Wednesday night. Today is the 23rd of March, and we are live. Um, two, if you're looking at the video, we got two of us, two heads, two talking heads, two bald heads on either side of the thing, right? And Chris is not here tonight, which is a bummer, but what we that's why there's three of us. It actually works out really well that when someone's not available,
Yeah.
we can sort of still have the show with two of us, and that's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to have some fun, and yeah, I'm pumped up. I'm excited, and we had a comment even before from Off the Rails Gaming saying so pumped, and that's pretty cool. Do we? Here's a question for Rich, by the way. Do we have feature chat working?
I'm loading that up right now.
Yeah. All right. Cool. And whatever. And yeah. So hello everyone. It's Wednesday night. We're here, and we're psyched, and we're gonna have some fun tonight. Before this, I was looking at our YouTube channel, youtube.com/the Dev Talk Show, and I was just looking through some of the. Yeah, sure. You want to put it on my screen here? Yeah, so here is our YouTube channel. You're going to share that now. You feel free. Let me just.
It's out there.
Yeah, cool. So I was just looking, so last week we did this show on Azure Web Pub Sub, which is a fun name to say, right? Azure Web Pub Sub.
Yeah.
And that's cool, right? That was a good one, Rich. You definitely took the lead on that and gave us a cool tutorial on Azure Web Pub Sub. If anyone isn't familiar with that, you can go to our YouTube channel and check it out. Rich, 30 seconds on what's Azure Web Pub Sub for anybody who's tuning in now.
Yeah, so great video. Go check out. It's essentially the ability to do WebSockets and run many of the real-time updating scenarios that are out there. So yeah, definitely go check that out. I am going to bear with me 1 second. I'm going to swap out cameras for a second. Yeah, my video has frozen. So I will let you run while I figure out. Yeah.
Sure. So we did Azure Web Pub Sub last week. A week before that, we did the sort of part 2 of a little Git series we had. It was a two-parter, practical Git at work, and that's where Chris Gomez, brings the good stuff, brings the magic when we talk about Git, and that was a really good show. It was supposed to be, I guess we did the first one, 4 weeks ago, and it just went long. Like it was just so much to talk about. So as you can see on my screen here, this was the first one, working with Git, your tips, frustrations, and questions and stuff like that, and that was great. But we had so much content that we said, well, why don't we just end the show after, let's see, almost 2.5 hours. Oh my gosh. And then we came back, 2 weeks ago and finished that up. And that was great. And then 3 weeks ago, you can see we had Brian Manisi on the show talking about this sort of how to use Azure DevOps and GitHub together in a hybrid model. And I thought that was really cool. Especially for people like me in my organization, where we're pretty heavily invested in Azure DevOps, but we have the idea to start maybe moving some stuff to GitHub, and so we talked about how those things can work together, right? And then what else did we do? Oh gosh, like it says 2 months ago we did Azure API management, and that was cool. And tonight I thought it would be good to maybe get back to basics a little bit. And so Rich started this series last week, and it was called pick a tutorial or something. I don't know if Rich is able to talk.
Yeah,
because he's switching out his
camera. I can talk. I just can't. You just can't see me talking. So yeah, I think we called it try tutorial or something along those lines.
Yeah, try a tutorial, pick a tutorial, and the whole idea is let's take a look at the Azure, at the Microsoft docs.microsoft.com, and let's just work through something. And in this case, the Azure Web Pub Sub service was really new to us, and we're like, let's just try it out. And I thought it would be a cool night to try something like that again, this time admittedly on a topic that I've worked with before, I know Rich is familiar with the topic as well, but we wanted to talk about Azure Function apps, um, Azure Functions, right? Which is like a pretty cool thing that maybe a lot of people know about it already, but I can tell you that I know for a fact that a lot of people still don't know about it, right? Not everybody's up on the cloud yet. Adoption is, moving along, and let's see. I see you moving on my Skype. I don't know if you're back. Oh yeah, he's back. All right, everyone wave to Rich. Yay, Rich is back.
Let's not
Um,
jinx it.
it's amazing. I mean, Rich, I guess you deal with this a lot, right? But cloud adoption is crazy, right? I mean, and it's great. People love it, and it's huge. But yet, there's still a ton of people that are not on the cloud yet. A ton of organizations that are not on the cloud, such as Azure yet. Am I right?
Yeah, and if they are, they may be still at the point where they've just taken those virtual machines that they had running in their data centers and moving those into a cloud environment. So even that, while it's great, it's really just infrastructure, right? It's virtual machines, it's networking,
Yeah.
it's storage and things of that nature. What we're talking about here is moving your applications to the next to moving your applications into what are called platform as a service. And while there's certainly compute, storage, and network running behind the scenes, you don't have direct access to those. And what that gives you is the ability to architect your applications much more differently than you would in traditional on premise or IaaS type of scenarios.
Yeah, and at my organization, we do a decent amount of that. I mean, I guess we probably don't do tons of it, but we do a pretty good amount. Everything we build, certainly anything new we build on a platform as a service, right? And it
Mm-hmm.
really is nice. There's some really great benefits when you think about DevOps and the whole process and how easy it is to spin things up and have services available to us um, without having to provision a server, um, which, listen, these days provisioning a server isn't the hardest thing anymore. I mean, there's lots of ways to provision servers with virtual, all kinds of stuff, and it's not quite as time consuming as it used to be, right? Most companies, I hope they don't say, well, give me a week and I'll have the server ready for you, right? Like now, of course, on IaaS on Azure, boom, you could spin up a server pretty quick, but it's just this is even better. And then with platform as a service, right, Rich, you don't have to worry about Windows updates or whatever that kind of stuff is, right? It really takes
Exactly.
a lot of the work out of it, and it's great. Now, I guess it's probably worth talking a little bit about that. There's multiple ways to deploy an app. An app's a very generic term here. I don't mean like a phone
Right.
app, but an app into Azure platform as a service, right? We should do a quiz on Rich. How many ways can you name where we can deploy like an app into? I'm not saying name every Azure service because how many Azure
Right.
services are there?
There are hundreds. The number keeps
Hundreds, right?
changing.
Yeah, that would be a good quiz. I
Yeah,
wouldn't want to guess because tomorrow it's probably going to be wrong. There's always a new one being added, right?
definitely. Definitely.
Like Azure Web Pub Sub is a new one, right? But there's a bunch of ways to deploy. Let's just say when we talk about an app, some kind of functionality that I want to run in the web, right? Somewhere out there on a server, right? And so, I could deploy a web application. I could deploy a web API, and there's a bunch of ways we could deploy those, right? We could deploy those into Azure App Services.
Yep.
Is I guess pretty much a go-to way to do it. You can do a lot within Logic apps, I guess, right? As a way to do it, I would think, right? I mean, not quite a
And
web app, but it's a way to have things running in the cloud.
right. I mean, some of those things that might be service related, right? Those back end bits of functionality that you need to go in. And Logic App is kind of more workflow, but you could certainly hook it up where it has an
Right,
HTTP
workflow, right.
endpoint and have it talk to some through one of the connectors, pull data out of various types of services. So yeah, I mean, you could certainly wire something out like that. I think what's interesting is we talk about app services, and that's a place where you can certainly run your web applications. Um, Functions
And web
actually
APIs, right?
and your APIs, yeah. Anything that you would typically, in class or in .NET Framework style would have deployed on the IIS type of a server, but it could be when functions is what we're going to be talking about, and that actually started as something that was part of app services called web jobs, and that was just a little bit of code that ran on a scheduled basis, and I used them when I was consulting prior to joining Microsoft, where you would have something run overnight and it would look at a document store and pull documents to be placed in a location that were now available via web front end. So there are all kinds of different. I'm sure you've built plenty of applications that have some kind of uh, underlying recurring process that needs to happen, and it only runs for a short bit of time. But when you need it to run, it has to run well and run quickly. And then that idea spawned off into functions, which is, kind of that same idea. I can have a recurring bit of code that runs, and it runs, and when it's done running, it shuts itself off, which is great. And while that could be done recurring, there's a whole bunch of other ways that we've taken, that functions have gone as far as how you can trigger those and how you can kick them off.
Yeah. So function apps are, I think what I was thinking as an intro. So one thing I wanted to do is bring up. I'm going to go to function apps documentation. So I'm here on docs.microsoft.com, right? And I think we said this last week, or I said this last week. I remember saying it. Wow, docs have come a long way. You know, there's some cool stuff in the docs that I'm going to show. By the way, so Off the Rails Gaming is saying that there's a bit of audio stutter tonight, and on both of us, I guess. Not sure if it's a Twitch issue. Yeah, I
I'm
don't
not
know.
sure.
If
I'm hearing
anybody
it.
else is hearing audio problems, what's that, Rich?
I hear it in my headphones here, and it might be, and I'm trying to shut down services to prevent that from happening. But yeah, I can concur. There is a little bit of occasional stutter.
Okay. Well, we're going to work on that. We hope it's not too distracting for you guys, but thanks for putting up with that. If you need to put up with it, sorry. So there's some really cool stuff in the docs in here, right? It really takes you through a lot. I was flipping through this because I wanted to really come at this and again, the kind of series is let's go through the docs. Let's see what we get with just following tutorials and things like that. But if we look at overview, it tells you what's an Azure function. It says, Azure function is a serverless solution that allows you to write less code, maintain less infrastructure, and save on costs. And I think that's worth talking about is the saving on costs part. But it'll continue. It says, instead of worrying about deploying and maintaining servers, the cloud infrastructure provides all the up-to-date resources needed to keep your applications running, right? And it's all good. You focus on the pieces of code that matter to you, and Azure Functions handles the rest. And what they're basically saying is, we write the code, they handle keeping the code running and serving it up, if you will, and all that kind of stuff. Now, I'm not going to read every bit of this documentation here, but we go down to scenarios, and I thought this was good. There's another thing I want to look at, where if I can find it, is sort of, I think one of the common things is people say with these things is, well, what do I need an Azure function for? We talk about writing APIs and stuff like that. People say, well, I already have a web API, and I already have that web API that I can deploy into my Azure App Service, right? So what are some of the advantages and disadvantages? And I'll find it here in the docs eventually. But a couple of the benefits between an Azure function or the differences between an Azure function and an Azure App Service, right? I think both of them have an aspect of serverless, right? Because an Azure App Service, I'm not creating a server for it, right? But I'm probably not going to explain this right, but a function app is like sort of more serverless. Is that like? And I think that's because of the way it scales. Am I right about that? Like more serverless might not be a technical term, but it feels
Well,
that way.
when you say more serverless compared to what?
An app service or a
Oh
function.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like
So
more serverless.
yeah, so the way I typically think of it is an app service. If I put my application on an app service, I have the ability to say how many instances of that application are running,
There you
and I can
go.
slide that I can slide that dial left or right and have more or less as I need to. I don't have that with serverless capabilities. There are certain capabilities and certain aspects of it that will determine how many of those need to run, and you can set limits around that. But how many of those need to run to meet the incoming demand for that are basically triggering that service?
Right. So with a server with an Azure service and an app service plan or something like that, right? You're sort of configuring a server, right? Let's face it, you choose what you want to run and you can scale it up instantaneously. It's great. But with a
Yeah.
function app, the scaling just happens, right? It's not my problem to worry about what it's running on. I think that's really, it like takes it even to the next level, right?
Essentially, yeah. I mean, they're the hardware. Yeah. The You're right. Even though it's a serverless, there's a virtual machine under the covers, and it pretty much there are a couple of size choices, but for the most part, yeah, you don't really play around with that side of it.
Right. Um, and so it's, the scaling is really great there. And then from a cost perspective, I'm not going to get into specific costs, but the bottom line is with serverless, if you're not using it, you're not paying for it. Am I right about
Exactly.
that?
Yep.
Yeah.
You're paying for the
So if
compute
I spin
power.
up an Azure app service, I'm going to buy this app service for the month, right? I mean, that's a simple way of looking at it, right? I'm buying it for the month. I think that's the smallest increment, right? I don't know. I mean, I guess you can cancel it, but you know,
I mean,
but I'm basically saying this is what I want to run, and if I increase it, I'm paying more. It's still a good deal and all that. I'm not being negative, but you're buying that thing, right? With
right.
a
And
with a
when you look at saying, hey, how much is going to cost me? It says if you run this for a month, this is what it will cost you because that compute power is running 24/7. Now, if you
right.
stop that, that's
Oh
when
yeah,
the charges stop, right? So it will, it's you're not locked in for the month, but yeah,
right. Yeah, right. But with a function app, I'll tell you a place where function apps are great. If you have a job that only runs once a month or something like that, like, you think about that. I'm only going to pay for the times when it's running, and that's where the function app, I think, can be a real advantage. There's a bunch of advantages to that, but you're really just paying for your compute, I guess, is the way you guys would say it, right?
yep, exactly, and storage because the bits
Well,
have
and
to store
storage, of course.
somewhere. Yeah,
Yeah, you gotta have some storage. The other cool thing about function apps is that they have different kinds of triggers, right? So an Azure App Service is basically an HTTP trigger, if you want to call it that. You make a request to the service, right? It's
hmm
HTTP based. But with function apps, there's a bunch of different things, and actually you can see some of them here on the screen. So they talk about different scenarios and like when. So on the screen I have up here now, and I'll try to blow this up a little bit to make it a little better. Um, Here are some set of scenarios that Azure Functions are great. Do I want to build a web API and implement the endpoint for your web applications using an Azure function app with an HTTP trigger, right? That's kind of the go-to, I think, for a lot of stuff.
it
But do I
it
want to
certainly is
process
the entry.
file uploads? What?
It certainly is the first thing people think of when they think of, hey, I want to create an API landscape or microservices or what have you, right? That having that ability to put an HTTP endpoint on it and just call it to do a little bit of work is a good entry level.
Yeah, yeah, it really is. But when you start to get into it, you realize that there's just all these other scenarios that are really cool. So in this case, right, they're saying, well, what if I want to process file uploads? Well, you can have a blob storage trigger, right? And so the
hmm
blob storage, when it gets changed, it's going to call out to your function app and execute it. Tell it to do its thing. Um, there's durable functions, and I don't know how much we'll get into that today, but that's an interesting topic if you want to build a workflow and have stateful functions.
Yep.
And hopefully, I'm not saying anything wrong, but that's the way I understand it, right?
Yeah. No, you're
There's
absolutely right.
Cosmos DB. Yeah, thanks. There's Cosmos DB. Look at this, like run scheduled tasks, right? Like, you know, I guess what I used to do is I would have an HTTP web API and I would have some sort of server that like has a job on it that runs and pings it and tells it to execute or something like that. No, I can have my function app run on a predefined time interval. I want to run it each night at a certain time, whatever, right? So I can do that. And the list goes on. So there's a whole bunch of different types of triggers and reasons why you might want to do stuff. And when you start to look at some of these things, you really start to see the power, I think, and the value of a function app and how it is different from a from an app service. But on the other hand, and maybe I'm going to simplify this too much, but if you're just creating, if you're creating an Azure, um, let's say you're creating an API, a web API, and it has like one endpoint, right? It has one function, really. So it's all it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
At a certain point, there's not that much difference between an HTTP based. It's different in the way you call it and the way you define it. But in terms of like the user's not going to really know there's much difference between the two, right? And
Right.
most of the code is really the same. Um, but there are certainly things you do in a function app that are quite different than creating an app service.
Yeah, and one of those things, when we think about some of the scenarios you laid out there, one of the one of the things I always make sure I bring this up when I talk about functions. One of the cool things about functions is you get binding of the object that
Yeah,
triggered
isn't that
the
cool?
function. So that one with the process file uploads, that blob storage event that happened, you're going to get information already included in that function call into the object that triggered it, um, information about that blob object. So you can use
Maybe
that
we'll
to
try that
host
one.
it.
Yeah,
I'm
that
sorry?
shouldn't be too hard because listen, we can spin up blob storage pretty quick. So maybe that'll be a demo we'll try. Like I'm trying to think of which
Yeah.
ones we want to try. I think we should get into writing some doing some stuff and let's see what happens. Now, I'm actually just going to go through some of the stuff. I thought we'd go down to quick starts, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I might do Visual Studio Code and Visual Studio, right? But let's start off with Visual Studio Code. And we're going to look at like the C# demo. And I'm actually going to kind of walk my way through this. Is there a way to close this window? Because I want to zoom in. I thought I could close off this left-hand tab, but I can't. Huh.
Uh,
I guess I can't. Okay, that's no big deal. Um, so I'm zooming in a little bit so we can see it, right? So it's going to tell us how to do this. And there is this execution model, which Rich and I were talking for a bit about beforehand. Um, this article supports creating both types of compiled C# functions, in process and isolated process. Um, and I think for the most part, we're going to be working on in process types and things like that. So it talks about configuring your environment. I've got the basic things installed already, right? So from that perspective, you can step through this thing. I'm not going to go through all that stuff, but I'm going to jump to creating the local project. I wonder what the best way to do this is. I could do um, I could do something like this. You know what? Let's just go back here. I wonder if I can do a side by side with VS Code. I wonder if that's going to be big enough. So let's see how that works because it might be a cool way to do it. Um, if I can, let me know what you think about this. What's this? I have another Visual Studio Code over here. Okay, let's see. Okay, because that might be kind of cool. All right. So I already installed. Of course, I have VS Code, and I installed this Azure Functions um, extension, right? And I will just tell you this: I've done Azure Functions before. I think I've probably always done them in Visual Studio.
mm-hmm.
And I can tell you that I've never used this extension. So I think this is kind of cool too to sort of see how this extension works and what it does for us, right?
Nice.
So, uh, and if I go up into this area here under functions, I can expand this out a little bit, right? So if I'm in this area, right off the bat, I can go to create new project, which is this. Oh, you know what I wanted to do? Hang on a second. Let's go to real quick. I want to turn on. Where's my friend here? I haven't led in a while, and so I forget about some of these things. But I'm going to turn on my friend Zoom it.
You're gonna.
I can.
That wasn't the one I was.
What's
I
that?
thought you were gonna. I thought you were gonna mention your friend Karnak.
No, that's next. Thank you. And my other friend Karnak, which may not come in yet, but Karnak is really cool because Karnak shows off keystrokes. If I do like a control key, it will tell you that I've done a control key. So for instance, if I do zoom it and I hit control 1 to zoom in on this thing here, then up on the top of my screen here, you can see where it says control +1, right up in here. Sort of like, right, it went away. So really cool for those of you who might do demos or sharing with your coworkers and stuff like that. Can be really helpful. So again, I've never done this before, but I think this is really cool that we're getting this like create new project button in here, and I'm going to click it, and okay, it's going to give me a place to save it. So I'll probably throw it in like a repos area. I think that'll be fine. I'll select that. Okay. Okay. So select. These steps were designed to be completed outside of a workspace. Okay. Um, provide the following information at the command prompts, right? Look at this. I mean, this is so cool. Visual Studio Code has come so far, and its core, it's just a text editor, right? But this
Right.
pluggable model, sort of all of a sudden you have really whatever UI you might really need, right? So it's prompting me for things. So I'm going to choose C#, of course. Now it's going to choose a runtime, and we're going to choose .NET 6, right? And the next one, it's going to ask me for the type of trigger, and we're going to go with the HTTP trigger, right? Which is what we talked about before. For the name, I'm going to stick with the tutorial so nothing gets messed up. So I'm going to call it HTTP example. And it says provide a namespace. Wow. My.functions. Okay, why not? My.functions. I could have called it the Dev Talk Show, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to have anything where it's like, copying and pasting and it's going to get me in trouble. So I'm going to keep it pretty straight up. We're going to make this anonymous, which is the authorization level, right? I'm down here. We're going to basically say anybody can call this thing. All right. And how would you like to open your project? Add to workspace. Now, I'll be honest, I don't know what we're talking about here. So let's find out what that is, but I'm going to follow this demo. And I'm going to say that. Now, look, it's creating a new project. And, if this was Visual Studio, I probably would have had one box that had like 5 prompts on it, right? This is so usable, though. It's great, right? Okay, so I get this prompt. I wanted to see if it says anything using this information. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so do I trust the authors of the files in this folder? I think I do. So I'm going to say yes, trust the authors. Okay, seems like a good idea. And it's finishing up. And what do we got here? This editor could not be opened. Oh, there we go. Okay, you know what? Somehow I have a preview of a website over here. I don't know if that's necessary yet. And I'm gonna, you know what? I'm just gonna, yeah, I can close this whole thing, right? Let's see what we got here. Actually, I don't think I need this. I'll come back to that later if we need to. So, so now it's telling me that I can call my function. I can press F5 and I can run this thing already. But before we do, why don't we take a look and I don't know, I like to kind of see what I got, right, and talk through some of these things. And I know a little bit about Azure Functions, so we can kind of talk about some of these things. First of all, it has a function name. Okay, it has a function name which is HTTP example. All right. Um, oh, what do we got here? Some projects have trouble loading. Please review the output. Do I care? Kind of curious.
Looks like it all
Don't know.
successfully
I
loaded from what I can see.
successfully loaded. Oh, maybe I need to look for the errors in here. Update project. Attempted to update project is not loaded. Document classifier. Well, this is an old thing. What is that? This is like, look, vision demo. This is kind of odd. I'm in the OmniSharp log. Why would I need that for the demos and things? Look at this. This is like face demo. This is AI work. This is back from when I did some kind of workshop. Something
Hmm.
is triggering something, and I don't know if I care. Um, so
Probably not
let's
for
close it.
this.
Yeah, probably not for this. So, so now what do I have? I mean, I have basically one method in here, right, in my class called HTTP example, and I have one method called run, and that's the standard for a function app, right? Run. Um, and what we have inside the parameters here are a couple of different things, and so we've got this trigger. So this is how we basically tell it that it's an HTTP trigger. I could put something different in this space, right? I could put something else in here and have it not be an HTTP trigger, but that's what we're going to do. And of course, this HTTP trigger has anonymous authorization. Um, and it allows get and posts, and the route is null, which is just meaning, I think, straight up, like if I call this thing, it's going to work. Now,
Right.
what's happening here is that's just an attribute, right? An attribute on this HTTP request. And so the request is getting passed in. So I have access to my request object, and you can see it being used here, right? And I also have an iLogger in here, and I can log things. Now, um, this is sort of like a little automatic dependency injection stuff that's going on for me, is the way I would see it. They're injecting the log in for me, the logger in there for me already. And then, so when I said, when you create an app, an Azure function, I said a lot of ways it's similar to what you would do in an app service web API, right? This is the stuff that gets to be the same for the most part. There's sometimes you'll do some things different, but the code is still the code, right? Still writing C# code to execute what I want to do. So what are we going to do? We're going to log some information. We're going to get the query. We're going to get we're going to get some stuff, and then we're going to respond. So why don't we try calling this thing now that we know that it's going to handle HTTP requests and it's going to do some stuff. So let's go back and so I'm going to try doing this with F5. And it did start. Look at that. I hit F5. Yeah, I do. All right. Well, I'll do it again. It's given. I thought I had it installed, but maybe I didn't have something correct. But um, how cool is this, right? It's telling me I need it, and now it's doing it for me. So that's all pretty cool.
Yeah.
Um, and it's tempting to get that from AzureEdge.net, so that's fine. Let's give that a minute to come through, and then we'll see this stuff over here, and we're going to see just how sort of simple it is to create one of these functions, right? So it's blah blah blah, a bunch of stuff going on, and I think it must have just finished because it's doing my build. F5 stuff is kicking in now. The thing I really wanted to do.
Yeah. And I
And here
think
it goes.
nope.
Yep.
Okay. I was going to say while that's going, I think that's a core thing to talk about, right? There's your functions extension, which gives you that little plugin that you have on the left side there at the very bottom with the little Azure A, right? So that'll give you the ability to control and deploy and see the functions that you have on your machine. But to get it to run, you actually need the function core tools, and that's what that
Yeah.
npm wizard just installed for you.
Right. Right. So, um, So now it's doing a couple things. Now, I will just say this, right? For those of you who are wondering, um, to do this show, we're running Skype between Rich and
Mhm.
myself. And I will tell you that when I run Skype, and I'm not bad mouthing Skype, but when I run Skype and I do screen sharing, everything seems to slow down on my machine. Oh, look at this. We got a problem here though. So uh, okay. repos.c repos.cs. Andy source repos.cs. I wonder if it didn't do what I was thinking it was going to do. Let me just look at something real quick. Um, did it like not? Did it put it at the root? I guess I thought it was going to create a. Oh, this is the wrong.
It's saying your program, that line that's just below, um, it says program.ces 1623 error semicolon expected.
Yeah. Well, but one of the things that's interesting here is if you look at my repos folder, so it didn't create a folder for this project, right? Here's Taste 323.
Right.
So it, I should have probably given it a folder first of all, right? I don't think the
Yeah.
idea was to have it be in here, and I guess I thought it was going to do that for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, so that's probably the first, thing that's not exactly great here. But then there's this repos.csproj, right? Which is what it's complaining about here. Um, and I can open the file in the editor right here. See, I'm telling you, I think it's because I'm in that. It's confused because I think of the
Yeah.
folder that it's in.
Yeah. So
Because this has
here's a
nothing
good.
to do with.
Yeah. So it there are ways around it, but for the most part, the folder that you're opening inside of VS Code, there should only be one function app inside of there.
Right, right.
And if not,
Um,
yes, it will
you
totally
know,
get confused.
and so I didn't notice this, but it seems like there's I don't know. Something's not right. And I think I kind of want to start this over again.
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah. So what I'm
Because
going to do is I'm going to close Visual Studio Code. Well, I guess I can leave Visual. I'll just close this thing. I'm going to go back over here. I don't think this will take us long, really. I want to go
no,
back
you'll
over here,
just
and I think I'm just going to delete all these files because that's just going to get me into some kind of trouble here. And why don't I just create Hey, look at that.
wind the
Awesome.
clock back. There we go.
Sound effects are usually my job, I thought.
Well, you're busy.
Um, yeah, no, I love that. What was this thing going to be called? Function demo? Oops. I don't know. It doesn't really matter what I call it, I don't think. So I got that now. So let's do this again. It will just take a second. I'm going to go back into um, VS Code. Sorry, right here. Oh, here we go. All right. Now, one thing I didn't do is I didn't open up Visual Studio Code in a place. I opened Visual Studio Code. You know what I mean? I didn't say like code here,
Right.
right? I wonder if that would be better if I go back
Well,
to my folder.
yeah, and
You
part
know what I
of
mean?
it could that would help, but I think when you create your function should tell you what folder do you want to deploy this into, and then if that's its
It
own
did.
separate folder,
It
then you
did
should be
ask me
fine.
that.
Okay.
Um, but I'm gonna do open with code anyway, just to help. And I opened it like at that path, right? So if I was to go to That's okay. I think it'll be fine. I was going to say, show me where I am, but let's just do this again. I want to get back to where we were. I'm going to do this thing again. Now it's going to be slow. Let's see. Okay. Um, so I'm going to do create new project. Can I click it? Let's see. Back to where we're here. I'm hitting a button. Here we go. Okay. Folder, browse. Okay. Oh, function demo. Yeah, yeah. It knew where we were. Sorry.
Okay.
That time it knew where we were. I saw it as I did it. We're doing C Sharp, .NET 6, HTTP trigger, and what do they want me to call this thing? Function, create a new HTTP trigger name. I guess this is where I said HTTP example, right? And now my dot function. And so this is what happens when we do live stuff. Like this is not a rehearsed demo. We're like, let's find out what happens if we follow the docs, right? And what kind of trouble do we get into? And sometimes there's a couple of mistakes here. Tiwahoo says project was trying to build all the CS files under in the subdirectories. Benefit of the new SDK project files. Yeah, that's what I kind of think was happening because it was at that root folder and it was all confused and it was trying to do all that. That's probably why we got that warning at the beginning, Rich. You know what I mean? Okay. This time it didn't ask me to add it to workspace, which is also interesting. So let's try this again. Now we're going to hit F5 and it's going to go. It shouldn't ask me to install anything anymore, so that part should be easy. All right, let's close this side here. And thanks, Tiwahoo, and hello, by the way. Thanks for being with us. Thanks for, now I'm still getting unresolved dependencies, but I'm not going to go to that at all. I don't think I want to do that. Okay. Da, 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 da. So, for those of you that are just joining, we're playing around with Azure Function Apps, and we're just going to walk through the demos. Oh, here we go. That's a good sign. Okay. So I'm getting a firewall warning, and I want to allow that to happen. So that should be fine. Is it okay? Here we go. Now I am getting this. Yeah, I think it just took me too long to do that. Now, so here we go. Okay. Let's see. Using this for secrets file configure. Okay, fine. Now here's the thing. So here's my URL. Okay. So if I control click it, I'm looking on one of my screens to see which one it's popping up on. I didn't see it pop up on any. Oh, now it popped up. Okay.
There we go.
Yeah. Okay. So here it is, and look, there it is. This HTTP triggered function executed successfully. Pass a name in the query string or in the request body for a personalized response. All right.
Yep.
So in the query string.
Yeah. So you could just put, yeah.
Like, are they saying like name equals?
Yeah. Exactly.
Hello.
Yeah. That simple.
My name is Rich. I'm putting spaces in because I don't want to have any problem. And look at this. Hello, my name is Rich. I should have said Rich, but hello, my name is Rich. Okay, look at that. So the function app works. Okay. Had a little minor headache getting there, but nothing that we should be worried about. And so look at that. And so we see it right here, right? It's saying hello. And so if we look at the code, as we were kind of looking at it briefly, there was basically a statement here that says, if the name is empty, then put out the string that prompt for name. And if the name is not empty, then say hello, right? No HTML formatting necessary. It's just a string. It's just an output of, nothing to worry about, right? And it put the response message in the OK object result, which is a good thing. So that's basically our first function app, if you will, right?
Yep.
Now, does it do a whole lot? Yeah, go ahead, Rich.
Just to a little bit of clarification, right? Because you called it a function app,
Oh yeah, I'm
and that
sorry. Right.
no, that's totally yeah. Because there's a bit of a distinction there. Right? A function app is the unit of scalability, let's say, right? So
Right.
you could have additional functions inside of this function app, but as um, that function app, when you deploy it, all of those functions are going to get deployed together along with it. If you need more instances of that, that's the scale at which they're going to get deployed onto multiple machines. So just think of that as you start to group what goes inside of that function app, that that measure of scale and that measure of updatability. Anything that's inside of there, would fall under, look at it with both of those lenses to decide whether it needs to be in there or maybe in its own separate function app.
Yeah, that's good. I appreciate that. Um, what I was also going to say now is, what does this function app? What does this function do? It's kind of like, who cares what it does? If you're a developer watching this show, you know how to come in here and add code in here to get stuff from your Azure SQL instance, or and calculate things and do stuff. That's not what this is about, right? We could do that, but we're talking about that sort of core. I don't want to say container because this isn't a container, but the thing that is hosting our code is the function, right? So this was, super easy. Now, of course, this is running locally. This is running on my machine, and I think this particular demo. Let's take a quick look. Where are we here? Um, let's see what this demo says we can do next. Um, so we hit F5. We got the URL, and we did it. Now, with core tools running, it says go to the Azure Functions area. Under Functions, explain local project, click Windows, HTTP example, choose execute function now. We didn't do that. Um, maybe we should do that. Let's try that. Okay. Um, let's go back to. I will be honest. I am still not used to. Um, I don't have Windows 11 on my work computer. I have it on this. This is my personal computer, right? And so I don't use it all that much these days, and it still throws me off when I have these round things. I'm just not used to it, right? I like it. I'm totally not used to it. It throws me off for a brief sec when I see it. So, all right, let's go to Azure Functions area, right? And under functions, which is where we are here, it's a little hard to see because I made that small, but this is functions. I can expand this and go to the functions, and it says right click the HTTP example. And this is why I kept the naming right, because otherwise I'd be like, I can't find the thing they're talking about. And I can execute the function now, right? And I can actually put in, it's prompting me for the name. All right. So I'll leave it as Azure. That's fine. I think I can say, okay. And here's my response, right? So in other words, it's a function. It's not a web app necessarily, right? I called it from a browser before, but it's not meant to have a UI. It's a data API essentially, right? At least that's the way I'm explaining it, right? So, and if we look over here, let's just take a quick look um, over here. I want to figure out, how did it know to ask us for the name parameter in that thing? How did it prompt us on that? I find that kind of interesting because the request doesn't have, I mean, that's not a parameter. Name is not a parameter. It's part of it. If I put it in the query string, it's going to work. Um, but yet, um, it prompted me for that, right? Which I think is pretty interesting. Um, I wonder if I was
Oh,
to change
sorry,
this to be
I was
something.
on mute. Well,
Oh, okay.
there's your that prompt is on line 32.
Oh, the prompt. Well,
right?
yeah, but what I'm saying is, okay, let me just do this differently. I'm going to do this again because maybe I missed something. Okay, so that's what we got when we did it in the web, right?
Hmm.
Maybe I'm missing something here. But if I do execute function now, see this? It's not giving me that message. It's asking me to fill in this
Oh,
parameter.
because it will. You can either do it through a query string, which is how you which is what you have easily accessed when you do it through the web. But here you're doing it as the payload body in the request.
In the request, right? But what I'm saying is, where in this thing, if I want to add another parameter, do I set it up so that it would be different? And I'm wondering if it's interpreting this somehow, or it's getting to this stream reader.
So the name
You know what I'm
piece is,
saying?
I do. So if you wanted to include, so C line 27, where it takes
Yep.
the stream reader of the request.body and it reads it to the end.
Yep.
So that is, uh, right, because that's right. So yes, so that is taking what you put in up in that command palette, name colon Azure.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yes.
that's what's in the
That's
body.
where it's grabbing that, right? And it's taking the request. This is the body of the request. And it's
Right.
using that body from here. It's reading
Yes,
it like this is like I just posted that. Not posted it exactly, but I did. I
but you
sent
could.
that via the API as my request body. But yet it gave me this prompt with name and Azure, right? And
Because
so I'm wondering, what's that? I thought you were saying
go
something.
ahead. I
I'm
was
wondering
about to.
if I wanted to add something else to this,
Yeah.
right? So this is kind of my little game here. First of all, let's just say okay to that, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then it says hello Azure. And it's putting it down here in this little section here, hello Azure, right?
Yep.
So if I did something different, I'm just wondering if if there's some kind of cool thing going on here. So I'm going to say last name, right? Um, I'm going to call it last name. Winging it here, but something tells me there's something going on here, some kind of binding or something. Because
It. Yeah. It's not that specific.
yeah,
Um. So yeah. So what you would also have to do. So that those lines at 22 and 23 work against the query string.
oh, that's true. That's against the query string, not against the body. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. So if you were
So
to
this
drop
is for
down
the
to
query
20,
string,
yep. If you were
and
to drop down
here,
to line 30,
yeah.
and well, um, because
But
what
see, we
line
never saw
29
this
is
whole thing
doing,
that says this HTTP message triggered a function, right?
right? So let's take a step back and walk through what's going on here. So um,
Yeah,
we have the query string that happens, or at line 22, it's looking to see if there's a query variable called name. Standard web,
right,
uh,
exactly.
right? That's easy. Come down to 27. It's also saying, well, this could be a post or a get that has a body in it. I'm going to get the body, I'm going to read it and drop it in a string object. And then I'm
Mhm.
going to use Newtonsoft JSON to be able to convert if there's a JSON object inside of that body
Yeah,
into a
that's
dynamic data object. So what you could do is if you did modify the payload when you execute, you would have to have something at 29 that says, or 30 in this case, that says last name equals last name, and if it doesn't exist, goes get data dot last name.
um, yeah, I mean, this basically, and 29 just simply says, give me the name. Did it come from the query string or did it come from the body, right? So that's
Yep.
all this is, right?
Yep.
But this is a response message, right? And so what I want to do is I want to debug this.
Okay.
I was going to
Yeah, let's
debug
do
in
that.
Visual Studio. So um, can I just do that? I don't know.
We got to put a
Uh,
breakpoint. Yeah.
yeah, I just dropped a breakpoint in here. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm watching the delay.
Um, no, that's okay. Yeah, yeah. The delay is a little tricky. Oh, I'm not sharing this to you. Why don't you tell me
No, that's
that?
okay. I can see you
That's what I always
in
complain. Oh, wait, I
I
am
can see.
sharing this to you. No, I am sharing this to you. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to do the F5 version again.
Yep.
Um, well, that's not really going to give us the same experience. Can I do a debug? Will this debug? I kind of feel like it won't.
Let's find out.
Yeah, let's find out. I don't think so. No, that did not debug. Um, is there a button for debug?
There could be. I mean, you could do F5.
Yeah, that's the F5 version. So right, so let's do the F5 thing. So when I do that, it's going to spin up again. Pre-launch start. Oh man, I wonder if it was still sort of running. Let's see. What's that? This is interesting. I wonder if name. Look at this. Name is required. By the way, you notice that? So where did that get set up?
I don't think that's what. I don't think I. Yeah. I don't.
Hang on. Let's just see something here again. I don't know why this didn't run. It says press any key to close it. There and oh, that was so weird. I think the terminal was maybe running from a previous.
That's fair.
All right. Okay. Now I wonder where that file was from. Remember, I opened up that file somehow. It was that JSON file, but it's not. Oh, maybe I'm in the wrong thing. So if I go to yeah, it was not this local settings. Host JSON. I'm just looking to see what kind of stuff we have here. Where did that come from? You know, that
Yeah,
file
that's
that said
interesting.
name equals. Okay. Well, here it is. I don't know why I keep getting this unable to update debug Sentinel file. What the heck's that?
Yeah, that's. I'm not sure that's a new one. I'll be honest.
Okay, here comes my. It always wants to open on a different window, right? So we have that breakpoint in there. So let's just see if that. Yeah, I think I just hit the breakpoint. I thought I saw something stop. So I'm hitting the breakpoint, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this is different than the other situation we were in before. So if I go through this, it doesn't have the query string because I didn't give it to it. It's going to do request body and and it's going to say it doesn't have name. Boy, the delay is really big. I'm looking at the stream too. It's a pretty long delay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so this is just going to be fine. Like this isn't going to tell me what I was wondering about before.
Right. But
Um,
if you had Postman, you could jump into Postman and put a request body in there and do that.
I could do that with Postman. I could put a request body in here, but how would I know what the body needs to be? And it seemed like where I'm really stuck on this is that it seemed like this Azure thing knew what the body was.
No, no, it's it's not that. So I'll be honest. If you change name and make it first name, it won't come back with name because what it's doing, it's this was in, or at least to me, appears analogous to what we used to have in the browser when you would create functions in there. You had a little test harness, and it gave you, because the default or the file new project required a name variable. That's why it asked you for a name when you ran the test harness. If you change that up, then it's not looking at that to say this is what we now need to be providing.
So wait, so why do you think it was telling me that I needed a name?
Because
Where did
you're
it get that from?
because
You think it's
the
from
file new
here?
project, well, no, it didn't get it from anything. The file new project, if somebody's just starting and doing a file new function project, they know
Yeah.
that the way that project works is I need to provide a name, and I can do that in the query or I can do that in the body. And that's all that was. It was the test honors to show how you could do that in the body. If you change it, it won't then change when you try and execute it.
Okay.
I know with all the IntelliSense and Copilot and stuff like that, we think it should, but it won't.
Yeah. I guess I just don't get where that's coming from.
It's just standard template.
Oh, you're saying that you think it's just always putting this up here, no matter what I was starting. It's going to give you like a pretend JSON snippet.
Right.
It just
Based
so
on,
happens that I'm looking for name.
yes. Now if you were to change name and look for something else, that won't
Right.
change.
Oh, I now I get what you're saying. You were explaining it, and I just wasn't
It's
getting it
okay.
right. They're just showing you like,
I'm
hey, if you
patient.
want to put JSON in here, it would look like this, right?
Bingo.
And I could put whatever I want in there, right?
Yes. Yes.
Um, so now I do get what you're saying. Oh, that was just disappointing. I thought there was some kind of real cool magic going on in there. Oh well.
I was trying to
Um,
walk you back from that.
yeah, I was having a hard time. I like magic.
Magic is good, right?
Magic is good. Oh, look, it's still debugging.
Well, it's waiting for you. Yes.
No, 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 I didn't know it would be in debug mode because I called it through the other. I'll show you. Watch. So I'm going to run this thing. I thought I hit run.
Well, that other toolbar's over top of it. Yeah.
Uh, oh, I see. Oh, I'm hitting the wrong. Oh, I was hitting the green button behind it. That's why I was getting some errors before, because I was trying to start it. It thought I was trying to start a debugger at the same time that it was already attached. That's why I
Bingo.
was getting those errors. I
Yep.
because I that's really interesting. I did not notice that those were two different buttons. So let's see if we can recreate. See that? Look at this. This is interesting.
Yeah. Now you can move that along.
Yeah. See
Yeah.
this is behind it, and this is over the top of it,
Right.
right? And I thought this was part of this toolbar. Um, so this is what
Understandable.
happened. This is just you know yeah. So I can move this, and that makes a little bit more sense now, doesn't it?
I think so.
Um, I'm just looking to see that there's not like a.
Well, it's not. It's waiting for someone to make a request.
I
So
was
right now
waiting for
there's
a
no code
request, right?
running.
Because I haven't called it from the thing. So now I can come over here and do this. That's what I actually got happening before. Then I hit execute function now. It's already in debug mode waiting. And I think this is why that worked. Because if I type in this, it's hitting my breakpoint, right? Which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
And now I see, yeah, that's actually a kind of neat thing. So you can debug it off that as long as you start the debugger first and
First.
then execute it,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
And now
Nice.
request timed out. It's mad at me, but that's okay. All right. So we learned some. I'm learning some stuff that I hadn't done before, which is cool.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and Itiwahu, I see in the chat. By the way, thanks for jumping in and throwing some messages at us. We love it. And Tiwahu says, I love hearing what other developers think when they develop. We're all like, yeah, I like it too. Like hearing the thought process and hearing like, well, what do you think that's all about? Right? That's cool. All right. Let's go back to the. Where's my docs? Oh, it's over here, right? Okay. So the one thing we haven't done is okay. Wait. So let me just see. So this is talking about this thing. Press Control C. Let's just do that and stop the debugger and see if that worked. Didn't seem to. I wonder if I wasn't in the right. Does it stop?
No, do the little disconnect.
Yeah, this thing here, right? Disconnect the debugger. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why that didn't work, but okay. So, um, so now it's time to use Visual Studio Code to publish the project directly to Azure. Okay. Now, this is what the docs tell me to do. This is a bad idea,
Why is it a bad
right?
idea,
What do
Andy?
they say? Friends don't let friends right click and publish. But we're going to do it. Nice. The sound effects. This is cool. Rich is bringing his A game tonight, guys. This is pretty cool. Like, beware, right? Warning. We are going to sort of right click and publish to Azure. And the reason we're doing that is because we wanted to see what it looks like. This is not something we would do in the real world, right? And there's some cool demos in here, by the way. If I go full screen with this, if I go down here under how-to guides, there are stuff about using continuous deployment and all this kind of stuff, right? So the tutorials are here. We are here to learn about the basics of functions and stuff like that. And so I don't think this is a bad thing to do. Anyway, what they do is if I come over here to functions, it's probably that button. Look at that. I wasn't sure, but it says deploy to function app. And so that was a good guess. And now I'm looking over here. And look, this is actually a different button. I guess I have a newer version. It shows the little cloud. You see that? So I'm going to do this and sign into Azure. And let's see what comes on. I'm going to go to a different screen just in case. No thanks. Okay, I'm now signed in and I can close this page. So I got the prompt and it did it, right? It was really simple. And now you can see subscriptions and stuff like that, right? So I'm going to go to my MSDN. And well, let's follow the tutorial, right? That's the name of the game here, is follow the tutorial. Okay. I thought we did that here. Sign into Azure. Okay, we did that. Publish the project to Azure. Okay. For the following, oh, I didn't see this, right? Select the subscription at the prompt.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I do that, look at that. So it gives it to me up there. Windows Azure MSDN. Oop, I think I have to do that. Check it, right? One selected. I think it can deploy to multiple at a time. Create new function app in Azure. Create new function app in Azure Advanced. Well, what does this thing say to do? Select function app in Azure.
Don't choose the
Let's
advanced.
say, what's that?
It says don't choose the advanced.
Does it say that?
Yeah.
Yeah, look at that. Don't choose advanced option, which isn't covered. Here it is right here. It is not covered in this article, right? So we're not going to do that. So I'm going to click advanced. No, I'm just, right. Okay. Enter a globally unique name for the function app. So function apps, right, like many Azure like many Azure services, when we name them, have to have a name that isn't just unique to my subscription, but is totally globally unique, right? And interestingly, they're not telling me what to put in here because, well, I guess they can't. So I'm going to put in something like TDTS Funk Demo 1. I think that's probably pretty unique, but hey, you never know. So let's enter that. and see what happens. All right, select a runtime stack. Let's give this thing. Is this going to give me a prompt here? It's not giving me a prompt yet. That's interesting. Um, uh, this is not giving me an option here. You know what I mean?
Maybe. Yeah, it looks like it's thinking.
It does look like it's thinking. I just want to see if there's something else on my screen over here or something like that that I'm not seeing. Oh, there it
There
goes.
you go.
Great. Yep. .NET 6. So I have a choice from .NET 6 and .NET 6. Well, actually, no, I could do this, but I'm not going to. .NET 6 is great. Um, Probably doesn't matter. I'm going to choose East US. We're on the East. Okay. And it's creating the function TDS func demo 1. And we'll give it a minute. And these things tend to spin up pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what it does. When completed, the following Azure resources are created. So this is what I was wondering. I assume it was creating a resource group, and this documentation says it is. I'm guessing it's going to probably use the same name or something like that. We'll find out, right? It will create a standard Azure storage account. Rich, now you mentioned this earlier, right?
Mm-hmm. So
Um,
what?
by the way, yeah, go ahead.
So, um, yeah. So I guess I could say it, but is there thoughts on why it's creating a storage account?
Well, I knew the answer to this question, and now I'm thinking, do I know the answer to this question? Um, and I don't remember honestly.
That's okay.
Um, yeah,
So if you think about it, your function, your code might, one way to think about it is your code. I deployed, published my function to Azure, and yeah, as soon as I go ahead and hit that URL, it runs. But through the life cycle of that function may actually go to sleep because nobody's hitting it, right? And you don't want to pay for the compute time for not using it. So that code has to reside somewhere. So a storage account is where that code resides, and then whenever it needs to launch that function again, or it needs to launch multiple instances of that function, I've got a common source to be able to pull that code from and be able to deploy it to wherever it needs to run.
right. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I did want to take a look at what's going on here because it does say check the output window. Let's see what it's doing. Oh, well, too late. To completed. That's a good problem to have, right? It finished up pretty quickly. Um, if I so what I was thinking about doing is switching over to my Azure sub, which is here. Um, and if I go to recent, I'll just refresh this, right? I assume it's going to be listed under. Well, I didn't use it, so it's probably not going to see it as recent, right? That's actually an interesting point. But I can go to, let's see, do I have function apps over here? Oh, no, that's not what I meant to do. I meant to hit this expand here. Functions. So I look at function apps, it'll give me, there it is right there. Look at that. So there's my function app. Now, what I was thinking is if I go to look at what my resource groups are in here, resource groups are at the top, and call it funk, right? Whatever. Let's look for that. So it did give the same name. Well, look at this. We did a TDS function app once before. You guys see that? Rich, do you remember? I don't remember this demo, but it looks like we did this. Is there a way to get the date? Actually, there is, but I think it's sort of buried in there somewhere, right? But this is the one we just did, right? I assume because the name matches exactly what I called the function app. So if we take a look in there, we're going to see a bunch of resources. That's what the doc said we would get, and here they are. I can bump that up a little bit, make it a little easier for you guys to see. Um, so interestingly, it created my function app on an app service plan. Now, aren't there two models for that? Two modes for that? Are you on mute?
I did. Sorry, had a cough. Yeah. Usually, so you can run functions, and I don't recall it give what option it gave. Yeah, there you go. So consumption plans. Consumption plan means your function runs, and you pay for the amount of time it actually runs. You can have it be continuous, in which case it would get deployed to an app service and be running just like an app service in on top of that app service virtual machine. So it just depends, and I don't recall that being a choice when you went through the creation of that publishing that
Yeah, I
function.
didn't see an option for that. That's why I was saying I thought that was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But it did create App Insights for me, and App Insights is about, I guess, monitoring and logging, and getting all kinds of metrics out of it, right? Um, which I guess we could do a show on App Insights. I think would be kind of a cool show.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree on that, and I think the I may have to dig into that a little bit because we're running as 6, and you also said to run it as in process, right?
Thought so, yeah.
It's the same process the function host. Yeah, let me take a look into that because that might be part of the reason why that separate app service plan is up. Okay.
Oh, because I called it in process as opposed to not in process. Um, I was thinking about, so we could look at this. Whoop, I hit the wrong button here. So this is my resource group. What did I do here? I meant to hit resources or something like that. What did I do? Where is my resources that are in the resource group? What is going on here? Isn't there supposed to be a tab that shows me what's in my resource group? Oh, it says, this is weird. Hang on. Let's just do that again. Oh, wait. This is the old one. Sorry, I clicked on the old one again. TDTS function. It is screwing me up. I guess I should delete that. So what I wanted to do is take a look at the function app and see what kind of stuff we get here in the portal. No, thought I clicked it. Sorry. Um, and so okay, so here's the URL to it, right? So it's out there now. I guess I could hit this. Um, let's hit it. Okay, my function app's up and running. Now, I think it was a get, right? So I should be able to. Um, was I? We did it before. I thought that was just a straight URL. Is there another?
Right. So look at the URL that it gave you when it said your function app is up and running.
Yeah, back here, right? I have to go to maybe here. Maybe is what I was thinking.
You would,
Uh,
and that yeah. There's a difference
there
between
it is.
what's
Oh,
here.
oh, right. So it still has API. It's
Mm-hmm.
giving you this sort of like standard thing, and then the name of the function is HTTP example. And I
Right.
believe this, I can change this, even if I kept the class at HTTP example, if I change the function name here, I think that's what drives the URL.
Yes. But if you
So I
change
could
it
give it
here
like a
now,
friendly name if I wanted to, right?
yeah, yeah.
So here I could say API, slash API slash, what was it? See, I have a terrible memory. I already forgot. Um,
HTTPS example.
HTTPS example? That wasn't it. See, you have a bad memory too. HTTP example. because it doesn't care that it's secure. It's basically
Yeah,
saying it's
everybody should be
using
using HTTPS now.
I like that. Good tip. So here it is. Look at that. It works, right? So here it is in Azure, running along fine.
Yep.
So, what I was thinking is if we go back to the docs here, um, we ran the function. Oh, look. Now, this tells me, by the way, this is interesting too. We did not do this. Okay. We did this stuff. Okay. We created the thing and it says select view output. There's notification, including the Azure resources you created. Okay, great. But look at this. Run the function in Azure. Okay. So I can run it. Forget about this tab. Okay. Let's go back. Um, and let's look at this tool here again. Because we were under local projects, but I'm guessing that if we come over, so it says back in Azure, expand your subscription. Okay. And here we are, and here's our function. And now, I guess it's probably this, an HTTP example, right? I didn't read the doc, I was just looking, but there it is, execute function now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I can do that. And here's that same kind of concept, but we'll say, I'm going to say hello, T Wahoo, because T Wahoo's been helping us out in chat here. Um, and here it is. Here's our response. But we we know that that just got executed in Azure, which is kind of cool, right?
Right.
Um, and let's see, notifications, yeah, is raised. And so it's kind of cool that this is kind of integrated. Like this execution is based on like the local version and the deployed version and stuff like that, which is kind of neat.
Mm-hmm.
Um, by the way, at the end of this demo, they talk about how you could go and delete everything to avoid having stuff sitting around in Azure, which is actually a really good idea. But I was thinking that maybe we might want to keep it around and look at the other demos and see if we can just expand upon it. Because there's a couple of things, so there's a lot more to it, right? We talked about different triggers, but one of the things I wanted to talk about, and I saw it here under how-to guides, and I've done this before as well, although it's been a while, is dependency injection, right?
Mm.
Because if you're doing this Azure function, and if you're familiar with dependency injection, we often think about um, class level dependency injection, right? That's sort of the go-to model, I think, for dependency injection these days. But we can't really do that in a function app. It doesn't work. Matter of fact, I remember when I think first did function apps, they didn't even have dependency injection. Like in the really initial one, I think. I
Mm.
could be wrong about that, or there was like some more hoops you had to jump through. Maybe my memory's wrong there. I don't know. But how would we do dependency injection in this case? I'm a big fan of dependency injection and all that kind of stuff. So I thought, look, maybe that would be a cool demo. And I think we can kind of use the I think we can sort of use the same example we have and just do it that way, right? So
Mm-hmm.
to register services, create a method to configure and add components to an iFunctions host builder instance. The Azure function host creates an instance of the iFunctions host builder and passes it directly into your method, right? So we're going to be doing method level dependency injection, right? And I think we've already done some, even though we don't think so, because the iLogger is going in that way. And let's just take a look and see if I'm right about that. Well, do we have so if we look at this thing here, um, let's do that. Let's close that up. So what's interesting, it must do it under the covers because there's no startup file in here. I think that's what they're telling us to work in, right? Let me just double check that. Startup uh, class, right? And
Mm-hmm.
we didn't do that, but yet we did get the logger, didn't we?
Right.
So I think it does that one for free. Um, and let's just see. So add the function startup assembly attribute that specifies the type name used during startup. And that's what this is here, right? So we're going to put in this startup, okay? I guess I can just copy it. And I'm going to create functions startup.cs, right? And I'm going to put it right along here. See, that didn't go to the right spot. I knew that was going to happen. I'm going to do that. Startup.cs. Okay. Drop that stuff in there. I thought I would have that. So did I need to add? Well, I got the extension. Currently only 3x. So I'm gonna have to do these NuGet packages. Okay, I thought I didn't need to. I thought that was there already, but I definitely need to do this. So, what's the easiest way to do that? I only have like a NuGet. I thought I had like a thing. I don't have NuGet over here, do I? All right. So I could install there's a plug. There's an extension for NuGet, right? I'm like a.
I mean,
I
there
think
is, but you
that
could
was it.
also do it. I mean, it's a .NET project. You could just do .NET add package.
Yeah, right. That's probably the easiest way to do it. I'm rusty on those things, but I can come right down here to terminal. Oh, wait, I'm still running this thing. Look at that. How did we stop that thing before? We used why does this thing not close? What am I doing wrong here?
So, so the easiest way to get going is on the right side there, right lower corner. Right there you go. See where it says
Oh
command?
yeah, yeah.
Nope, up a little bit. There you go.
Oh, that's command. Okay, yeah, yeah. But wasn't I already? Oh, this is published. So this is. Oh, I see. This is a different terminal, but
Right.
it feels like it should. This terminal should be closed or something.
Well, look at the last line. This terminal will be reused by task. Press any key to close it. So instead of spinning it up every time
I
you
thought
run
I
a
did.
function,
Oh, I pressed a key before I thought, and it didn't close it. Maybe I wasn't in the right spot. So anyway, yeah. Okay, great. So we can do. Does it give us the like a snippet? It doesn't give us a snippet for like adding these, right? But I think I can do that, right? So what are you saying is .NET add? Oh, sorry.
yeah,
.NET add.
package.
Any quotes?
No, add package.
No. Oh, add package, right? Add package.
Two
Add,
words.
right? Uh-oh. I hit, there we go. Package.
And then whatever the name of the NuGet is.
All right. And the docs are accurate. It did tell me I needed to do that. I just was being silly and thought I didn't need to. So let's do .NET add package. So I'm a UI guy. Like I'm used to like, and I honestly often work in Visual Studio, not Visual Studio Code, but I really like to because I want to get used to it more.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm used to like just going to the package manager and doing this stuff, you know. And I wish I wrote more code, but I don't write code every day. Be the guy that, you know. And that's the dependency injection package. So that's definitely one we're going to need.
Right.
All right. And now, um, interestingly, a lot of my stuff went away, but it still doesn't like this HTTP client. That's not right.
See, I don't
Like, I don't know.
where. I'll be honest. I've never modified the startup file before, but I would think it sits.
Well, I
Man,
don't think that's the problem, quite frankly, because it's there. It's a class at this point, right?
mm-hmm. Oh,
Uh,
and you're overriding. Never mind.
yeah, so it must give you a configure by default that does this thing or something like that. That's why we got that. But why? Almost seems like we've got the wrong services or something like that. Like it doesn't know what it is, but maybe. Um, what's this thing? I'm happy to.
Isn't your wouldn't your namespace be different?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Is oh right, I took their my namespace. Yeah, you might be right about that. Um, what is my namespace? It was my functions, which is a weird namespace, but whatever. I don't know if that's the problem, but I'll be honest. But
I don't either, but I'm looking at it, it's like, well, that doesn't look right. So
yeah, yeah. So that's fine. I don't think that I don't know that that really mattered, quite frankly.
okay.
But it was worth a try, right? Um,
And we don't get any IntelliSense
my
we need control.
service. I don't have a my service first of all, so this is a problem. And I'm not using HTTP client. Oh, you know why? Because I probably need references for HTTP client. I don't care about these. Okay.
Okay.
I don't think I care about these. And my logger provider, I don't have either. Let's face it, right? I don't have these things. I wonder if the docs we maybe should have read further down or something like that.
Well, I guess the only thing to say you don't
Um,
care about those is that
what's that?
because you're the only thing to say that you don't care about those services is that because you're overriding the function startup,
Yes, I understand.
you
Yeah.
might not get them if you don't include them here.
Right. I don't know. It's interesting, and you might be right. But interestingly, like afterwards, it says, by the way, if you're using this, you need to use the HTTP uh, package as well to get this add HTTP client, right? I'm not calling an HTTP client, and I think that's the only thing I would need this for is if I was making a call out to something else. I could be wrong. That's usually what HTTP client is for, right?
Hmm.
And I definitely don't have a my service. Um, but I thought I saw in the sample. Yeah, see, this is, by the way, here they're showing it differently, right? Use injected dependencies. Constructor injection is used to make your dependencies available in a function. Use of a constructor injection requires that you do not use a static classes for injected services or for your function classes. The following sample demonstrates how the my service and HTTP client dependencies are injected to an HTTP triggered function. And here, um, yeah, I thought it was different. Maybe I'm remembering things wrong. I thought they went in at the method level, like we did with the logger. Um, I want to see if there's mentions anything. See, look at that. By the way, support for dependency injection begins with Azure Functions 2.x. On 1.0, we didn't have it. That's what I was talking about before.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Dependency injection patterns differ if your C# function runs in process or out of process. So does it tell me, where does it tell you which ones? Just want to see if it says anything about in process or out of process. Um, huh. I want to just get this figured out. So would need a my logger provider, and it didn't say anything about like creating a fake logger provider.
Right.
Um, I could create a fake class and inject it in if I wanted to. Maybe that's a good idea, right? If I, oh, I hit the wrong button. If I was here and oh, I went and created a new class, I'm going to call it my service, whatever, right? Uh, okay, I'm going to say public void do something. Okay.
Okay.
And then I'm going to say that this implements my service, right? And I'm just going to throw it right up in here too. Say public interface. I'm my service. And I'll throw this thing in there too, right? Okay. So I've got this now. So now, oh, I should put a namespace on this thing too, right? Namespace was like my, what was the stupid thing called? My dot, oh, namespace, my dot
Functions. There you go.
functions?
Yep.
Was?
Yep.
I don't remember, honestly. I don't know why. I don't would never name something my in my world. Um, where's format doc? There we go. Okay. So I have that. So now if I went up to startup and said, I mean, we can use singleton, but I don't know if we need to use singleton, but my service gets a my service. Okay. So that's going to all compile because those things exist, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now, so now the question is, how do we use that thing? And if
Right.
we go back
How
to
do you
the
know?
docs, what's that?
How do you know that it got injected?
Well, yeah, well, it's not going to get injected yet because we haven't, told the function that it needs it, right?
True. True.
Um, this is just the sort of setup for it, right? Um, okay, um, so to use it, so this is what I was talking about before, actually. Oh no, this is it. That's right. They're still showing it with like class level dependency injection, which is kind of not what I thought. Oh look, they used. I'll do this. Okay, so let's do that. I think this is different. I swear it used to be different than this. Let's go back to my example. Service. This is going to be my example. Um, Static class public. It's kind of weird, but maybe it's just mad. I hate this stuff, by the way. So, see, this is what I thought. Cannot declare instant members in a static. This is what I was. Okay, this is where I think we got off. Because this is a public, not static class. My HTTP
Right.
trigger. Okay, and we saw something earlier. I thought where it said something about static. This is why this is not a prepared demo, and I'm feeling like a little, somewhat
Yeah.
self-conscious about this whole
Well,
situation right here.
and before you feel self-conscious, realize what we're looking at here is not a demo or a tutorial like we did with the quick start, where it's like do this, do this, do this, do this. This
Yeah,
is
that's
hey,
true.
you're thinking about using dependency injection. here's the things you need to consider and how you might wire that up.
Right, right. You're right.
So it's a
Um,
little more reading, a little more understanding there. So don't, you know, don't.
yeah,
It's not a tutorial, is what it comes down to.
right. And I remember making function apps. Let's see. Let's just see. Dependency injection. Just want to see if it says anything about how you override dependencies, Azure Functions on a consumption plan, support for. I wonder if, and I don't know why. Where's the static part come in? Because I don't think the answer. I could be wrong, but I don't know if the answer is to change it to be not a static class. We
Right.
could
That
find
seems
that
like a cop
out.
out. Yeah.
What's that?
That seems like that's too easy a way out.
Yeah. So I wonder if there's another. I knew it wasn't that. I could have sworn. Okay. And maybe I'm wrong about this, but I'm going to just try something. Okay. Because I could have sworn that you don't do this and you add it as a parameter here. Let's find out if I'm right about that. Okay. My service, my service. Okay. And we're going to find out because we're just going to call it, right? My service dot do something. L if dependency injection doesn't work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and let's just see if that's correct. All right. Um, I guess the easiest way to do it is to just do it over here again, right?
Sure.
I'll say go ahead. Let's find out if I'm wrong. Just make sure your project is running locally. I thought it was. It didn't start it, did it? It's weird. Why isn't it running locally? Oh, what the heck? Why isn't it running locally? I can F5 it anyway, okay? That'll make it run locally. Um, and maybe that was something we were always supposed to do that I just didn't even realize, but I thought that this did it for us the first time.
Right.
Okay, I think it's up. Let's just hit it here. I got this. Okay, good. Let's do that. Unexpected status code 500. It could be that it can't find this, right? I don't know. Well, let's try this real quick. Let's take this away from here. Make sure it's still running, right? Make sure that I didn't just break something else, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And we're winging it here. See, I wanted to go off script and do the debugging. I mean, do the
Dependency.
yeah, right? Okay. Let's do this now. Execute function now. Oh, look at that. Okay. So that's good.
Nice.
That means that this whole thing still works. I don't really care what happens after this at this point, right? So I'll just disconnect it. Okay. So the problem the problem is not uh, in this. Like I was thinking, maybe there was just something wrong right here, but that wasn't the case because uh, builder services dot add singleton service. Did I mess something up here? My service does implement my service, so that's fine. So the dependency injection is giving us some problems. So, I mean, maybe, look, it does say the use of constructor injection requires that you do not use static classes for injection services or for your function classes. So, is it a big deal not to?
It looks
Maybe
like
it's
it's
the
not.
same thing.
Yeah.
But if that's the case, why didn't we just start with that in the first place, right? So, let's go back and um, I'll sort of copy this stuff in again and change it a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are other things you can pass into the function here. I know I've done this where you pass in these cool, I think they're like filters and stuff like that. Is that right?
Well, there's certainly Azure function extensions that um, give you the hooks into some of the other triggers and output inputs and outputs that you can do in functions.
That's what
So
I'm talking about. Inputs and outputs. Yes, that I kind of remember,
yeah,
but I don't know.
so like
Um,
writing to a Cosmo DB is one of those examples.
yeah. All right. So I got I my service, and I got to get rid of this thing. Oh, this is the all right. Code gets unhappy. Um, okay, so now we're going to change this to be a regular class, and it's going to allow that. All right. So I guess it's as simple as just saying this. Now let's find out. Okay. Oh, I think it had an underscore on this thing. Class level syntax, wasn't it? Oh, no, not my service. This is static here. So that would have to become regular.
Nice.
But why didn't it just do that in the first place? Don't you wonder? All right. So now get this thing going again. I think this is going to be, hopefully, this is just going to work out good. And
Yeah, breakpoint.
uh, was the breakpoint still in there? Yeah, there's a breakpoint
Yeah.
right here. So that's a good sign, right? And do something doesn't do anything. But if I F11, we're in there.
Made
And
it
so the dependency works. So it really was as simple as just swapping it back
to be static or
to
not
uh,
static.
to not static. But I swore there was something different about it, and I'm just going to do a Google check real quick. Azure Functions method injection, because I thought that this was. Maybe it was like an old way of doing it, or maybe I'm mixing it up with something different, which is entirely possible. Because
Hmm.
this is the same thing we were just on, right? I think.
Yep. Yeah.
Um, Nothing jumps out when I do method injection, um, unless it's old, and maybe it's an older way. But again, I could just be remembering it wrong. The other thing I was thinking is Azure Functions static or not. Look at that. Someone else is asking that question. Now this is Stack Overflow, right? So See what we get. Starting out, this is older, of course, right? Public static class with a static. Okay, that's what we had, right?
Hmm.
And this person, whoever this person is, says it depends. Functions dependency injection. If you want to use DI inside your functions, there's no easy way to do it with a static class. Of course, that's what we were just talking about. So you're not able to do something. Okay, but yeah, this is interesting, right? It's a serverless fashion. You should assume that the process can exit after each, so it shouldn't accumulate state. That's interesting. Static method is indeed required. No, it's not, because we just did something different. But this is 2017. So I kind of feel like something changed.
I mean,
Um,
2017 was around that, if I'm not mistaken, that was kind of when we first launched functions, was around that time frame.
yeah. So I might be remembering like the old way that we had to work around something. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, quite frankly, the dependency injection was pretty simple.
Right.
Um, and that's probably enough for tonight. We played around with Azure Functions a bit, and we had a good time. And
Yeah.
I'm hungry, and I need a snack. And, so, thanks for hanging out with us tonight. You want to go back to the main? Yeah, there we go. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight. I appreciate some chat. It's a kind of quiet night. Rich and I are just kind of goofing around and trying to learn about some stuff. Or at least I am. Rich is here to
Mm-hmm.
sort of keep me from getting into too much trouble.
I,
Um,
I learned some stuff with the DI stuff. That was good to run through it. So,
yeah, it's good to refresh, right, and do stuff we haven't done in a while. Um, And so thanks for being with us. Thanks for chatting. Thanks for just hanging out. If you're just quietly listening, that's great. And come back and join us again next Wednesday. Do we know what we're doing next Wednesday?
I think we do. I think that is, so next Wednesday will be the 30th. And according to Meetup, that is when we're doing the Try Hack Me. Actually, Chris is going to run through that and do some examples out of that Try Hack Me site.
Okay. And I don't remember what Try Hack Me is, but I'm going to take a quick look here. Try Hack. I assume it's like seeing if your application is cybersecurity training, right? Which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Um, I can. I don't know if you
You
want
want
to.
to show?
Yeah, you want to just do that? That'd be cool. So fun way to learn. You sharing it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, cool. So try Hack Me, a fun way to learn cybersecurity. I don't know much about cybersecurity. I know some of the basics for application security and things like that. I mean, I guess more than just the basics, but I think this would be pretty cool to go through and try on these hacking for all skill levels, right? And of course, look, it appears to be in its own the website, and you kind of execute it through like a modern kind of tutorial kind of thing. So I think this will be fun.
Yeah.
Again, I probably didn't say a whole lot about it because I don't know a whole lot about it, but Chris seemed to think it was a good idea, and I'm with him on that, right, Rich?
Yeah, definitely. He's been good at finding these kind of sites that teach us different skills that we need to have as developers, and security is one that we definitely need to be getting our chops up on for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So come back next Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time, which with daylight savings and all that kind of stuff, I believe is -5 or something like that, or -4. I don't remember which is
I
which.
I think it's -4 now, but then I think Europe is
Okay.
also switching next weekend. So
Oh, yeah. Well, so who the heck knows? But anyway, it's
you know how
it's
you know.
8:30 p.m. Eastern time. What?
You know how you know? You subscribe because then you get a notice when we go live, and then you can adjust your clocks from there.
Well said. Well
There you go.
said. So, Rich, thanks for hanging in there and running the stream and making sure everything worked and playing sound effects for us because I love that stuff. And it was fun hanging out with you tonight. It was fun hanging out with everybody else on the stream. And we will see you next week on the Dev Talk Show.